First off, I just want to ask you, as we talk about this, the election's coming up, and I wanted to see, first of all, you've been in this position now since the last election, and I wanted to see first, for people that may not be 100% familiar with you, just a quick introduction, a 1-minute introduction.
Sure. Rodney Davis. I'm running for my 5th term in Congress to represent the 13th District of Illinois. It's 14 counties. It spans from, right in the middle is Springfield in my hometown of Taylorville, and we go to Champaign-Urbana, Bloomington, Normal, and then down to the Metro East St. Louis area. I've been proud to represent this area for the last 7+ years in Washington. I made a promise when I ran for this office the first time, I would go to DC and work in a bipartisan way. I'm the 13th most bipartisan member of Congress. I said I would write a farm bill. I've written 2. I said I would unclog transportation bills. I've done that on our transportation committee with the entire gamut of modalities of transportation. And I also said I was going to pass a bill that would allow employers to be incentivized to pay down student debt, because that's a crushing blow to many of our new grads. That is now law. So I've made my promises and I've kept my promises.
And so as we come into this re-election then, what are your plans for the future, and why are you the right man to continue doing this job?
Because I actually live up to the commitments that I've made to the voters of this district. Again, I said I was going to do all of those things I just mentioned, and now they're law. The good news is we've got so many more bipartisan solutions that I think we can put forth. I'd certainly like to pass the Social Security Fairness Act to change our Social Security system for those who are being punished and not getting the benefits that they deserve, especially our teachers and our public sector officials. These are the types of bipartisan bills that I not only like to support, I like to lead on. And we need to make sure that we protect Social Security and Medicare for those who are on it, and make sure it's a reality for future generations. And at the same time address the problems we have with our healthcare system that's leaving 60 million Americans behind. We can do that, lower premiums, and protect pre-existing condition coverage.
Now you mentioned the farmers in the area, which is a big part of Illinois' agriculture industry. How are you going to continue to promote that industry and help those farmers?
Well, number one, I have been traveling around my district since I ran for this office, meeting with our farmers. Getting a seat on the House Ag Committee and now being a senior member of that committee allows me to have a lot of input on what farm policy looks like. And at the beginning of this pandemic, after I've already listened to our farmers and passed 2 farm bills to put great policies in place, this pandemic disrupted that agricultural sector. I've been an advocate for them with Secretary Perdue, allowing food boxes and CFAP boxes, community food assistance program boxes, to take those crops, even specialty crops grown in our area, and make sure they get to those who need them the most. And a lot of our food pantries too. So it's not only what you do while you're in Washington, it's listening to your constituents in the ag sector as to what's going to work even while you're here in the midst of a pandemic. And we've had great successes.
I also wanted to bring up the topic, first, there's been a lot of unrest in the nation right now, particularly in Illinois as well, with the, the death of George Floyd and the recent shooting that happened in Wisconsin. I wanted to get your opinion on that and what you're going to do to try to promote, safety and help those in the country who may feel like they're, second-class citizens.
Well, I don't want anybody in America to feel like they're second-class citizens. I mean, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. There's so much opportunity for every single American, and we've got to make sure that everybody has the chance to take advantage of that opportunity. Unfortunately, there's different treatment for different individuals in America. It's happened, and we've got to do what Illinois has done. Let's make sure that we institute training programs that promote de-escalation techniques and promote social justice issues. But defunding the police is the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard in my time in Congress. I wouldn't be alive today without the courage and bravery of 2 African-American Capitol Police officers who ran toward gunfire so me and my teammates on a baseball field could run away from gunfire. That's what trained law enforcement officials do. They're the good guys. We need to give them more resources, because we can't paint law enforcement with a broad brush of corruption and bad behavior when it's very limited. We've also got to make sure that we have local leaders stand up to these looters and rioters in our communities throughout this country where this is happening. Leadership matters now more than ever.
Awesome. All right, and that's our time. Thanks. I appreciate your time, Senator. I wanted to switch gears now, and so this one won't be timed as much, but this one can be a little bit more set back. Actually, first off, I wanted to see, just really quick, do you have a closing statement that you'd like to make on camera?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to the voters for giving me the opportunity to serve them in Washington. And I want to go back because there's a lot more that we have to do. But I'm somebody who has always lived up to the commitments that I've made and made sure that we put our head down and worked hard in the midst of hyper-partisanship to get things done on their behalf. That's what I'm going to continue to do, and I'm here to listen to the good ideas that we can turn into law together.
Perfect. Thank you. So I wanted to switch gears now and talk a little bit. Yesterday we talked about specifically in Springfield, the bad turnout that we're having for the census, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact that could have on your district specifically if those numbers don't improve, if people don't participate in the census.
Well, it won't just impact my district specifically, it could impact other congressional districts. We're going to lose a seat because Illinois, being a high-tax state, we've lost so much population. They've moved to other states to pay lower taxes. So at this point, one congressional seat is gone. We don't anticipate another one. But that's the least of my concerns. My biggest concern is if we don't get the response in the census, then the federal dollars that I can bring back to our communities are going to be less. That means less money for our schools. That means less money for our roads and our bridges. That's not what we want. So please, take 10 minutes like I did. It took me 10 minutes because I've got 3 kids at home and I had to go back and enter their information. It was less than 10 minutes to fill out my census form online. It's never been easier. Just do it because we really need that information.
You know, and that's one of the things a lot of times, you know, maybe they don't understand how this really impacts. Explain a little bit more. You mentioned, first of all, the money that we'll be losing that won't be able to come into our communities. How else does this specifically, if I live in Springfield and I'm a homeowner, how will this impact me personally if people aren't participating in the census, aside from just the money?
Yeah, being a homeowner here in Central Illinois, we need efficient transportation networks. That's why it's important that we understand through this data, what people do on a daily basis. How long is their commute? These are the types of things that the American Community Survey is now taking surveys of throughout the decade. So this census is going to be nothing but the short form. And all we're doing is making sure we know how many people live in these areas. And what that means is we get an accurate population. We know then what resources can be given to our communities based upon that population. But non-monetary issues, the statistics that the Census Bureau puts together can help us determine where we need to put opportunity zones, where we need to continue to grow our communities because certain census tracts may not have the same opportunities as others. And that's what this data can do if you fill it out, if you take the time. And I urge you to do it.
Awesome. All right. Perfect. Anything else that you'd like to say about that? No?
No.
Good.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate your time.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.